Good morning, everyone. This is Faith at Faith and Books. Can you see that little, I don't know if you can see it, the blue thing back there? That is a new blow-up pool that we got for the 4-year-old. So he's really enjoying that. What else am I looking at? Oh, I see. I'm looking at the books here. Okay, I can't tell what's going on in the camera. Anyway, I'm going to do the Shakespeare Tag today. I think that's the name of it, just Shakespeare Tag. I don't think I was tagged. I'm not keeping up with tags very well right now. But I saw, who did I see do this? Roz at Scally Dandling about the books and Jennifer Brooks. I saw their Shakespeare tags. I know there are more out there. I just haven't gotten around to seeing them. But I thought I would use it as an excuse to talk about Shakespeare. And I was feeling kind of guilty actually wanting to do this because I just felt so oppressed by everything going on in the world. But then I got kind of distracted, and now I feel my heart's lighter, and I feel like, why not do a Shakespeare Tag? And the reason why my heart's a little lighter, it's not really lighter, but I'm just anxious and distracted by something else, and that is that we have to move our chickens today. So we've been clandestinely keeping 4 chickens in our garage for 3 or 4 weeks now. 3 weeks, 4 weeks. And, by zoning permit or permission, we don't have that permission yet, so we're not allowed to keep. It's the stupidest thing in the world. It's like keeping pet bunnies. It's really dumb. But anyway, so this little farm nearby said that they would take them for us until it became legal. And we haven't been able to do that because we had to go into lockdown because we were exposed to somebody who had COVID. And so we had to do a 14-day, complete lockdown, not even going out to the store or anything. And that's up. But then in order to move the coop that my husband and my son mostly and my husband helped, built, the guy is going to bring over his pickup truck, and between the weather, the rain, because where his chicken coop is, it's at the end of this dirt road, and if it gets too muddy, he can't take the big pickup truck down the road. And also, everybody uses the same pickup truck. It's like a little organic farm, and so he had to wait till he could get the pickup truck, and the weather was right, and we were available to move the chickens. So anyway, moving the chickens today, I'm very nervous about it because we have to catch them and put them in a box, and they've gotten bigger. I don't even know if I have a box that's the right size. And then we have to pick up the structure that my son, who never built a chicken coop before, built, so isn't going to hold together. And then we have to move everything over there. Like, you need to move bedding and feed and grit and all that. I don't know. I'm really anxious about my chickens. So, but that sort of got me off focusing on world issues and what a mess we all seem to be in right now. And it made me decide that morally it was okay to do Shakespeare Tag. So anyway, let me get started because I've already rambled. Okay, so the Shakespeare Tag, the first prompt is, what was your first exposure to Shakespeare? So I remember when I was, 6th, 7th grade, a traveling troupe came around, and in my little parochial grade school used the auditorium and put on a play, and I can't remember, I think it might have been 12th night, but I'm not sure. And I remember being completely baffled by it and not understanding it and thinking Shakespeare was hard. And then in high school, and I've already talked about this when I first started this channel, I had this high school teacher, Mrs. Badnath, and she just sort of said, go home and read Macbeth. It was in 9th grade. I had no idea what I was reading. I didn't understand it at all. And I just decided I was stupid, and I was a person who didn't get Shakespeare. So it was quite disappointing because I really did want to be somebody who appreciated Shakespeare, and I didn't. When I got into college, again, I read Macbeth. I never seemed to get to Hamlet. And that time it was better. I was older, and the teacher was probably better, and I was reading it a second time. So I did sort of get it, but I had already made up my mind that I just didn't do Shakespeare. So that was I had a bad first encounter. Okay, prompt number 2. Which Shakespeare plays and poems have you read? I have hardly read any sonnets. I know I've read a few over my life, but that just hasn't been the main thing for me. The plays have been I'm weird in that I have come after many years of trying to become a Shakespeare person, that I like seeing it first and then reading it. I think that it was written to be a play, and it wasn't written to, be read and analyzed and dissected in an English book. I think or an English class. I think it was first and foremost a performance piece, and so you should see it performed. And I like to know a summary of the story before I go in, so I'm not completely lost. But if you have good actors, you can understand it, even if you don't understand each specific word, because of the context, because of the expressions and the gestures and the phrasing and the pacing and all that. You can really understand it so much more. And then I like to go and read it. So reading Shakespeare is my big thing. Seeing Shakespeare, I would like to see more Shakespeare. So I've read a ton of them, though. I don't know, not a ton, maybe not. I haven't read lots of the histories. I think the histories have only... Is Julius Caesar a tragedy or a history? Anyway, Henry V is probably the only one that I've read there. Then I've read Romeo and Juliet, Macbeth, Midsummer Night's Dream, Othello, The Tempest. Just read The Tempest. Hamlet, Julius Caesar, Henry V, Taming of the Shrew. Okay, let's see. Oh, and the Merchant. Did I put Merchant of Venice? I've read Merchant of Venice. Okay, which have you seen? I've seen bits and pieces of Romeo and Juliet. I saw a sort of abridged version that was put on at the local university. George Mason University has a big performing arts center, and they have a special program for school kids. And as homeschoolers, we would buy tickets and go in groups. And I saw Romeo and Juliet there, but it was intended for like middle school students, or maybe high school as well. So I think it was a little bit abridged, but I did see that. Macbeth I have seen on the stage. They don't call it the National Shakespeare Theatre anymore. It's the Shakespeare Company Theater. I think it's the one in Washington, D.C. That isn't the Folger Theater. Midsummer Night's Dream, that I saw the best performance of any Shakespeare play I've ever seen, of that play in Stanton, Virginia, at the, what's it called, the American Shakespeare Company, something like that, theater. It's the Blackfriars. Wait, let me look. I always forget the names of these different. American Shakespeare Center's Blackfriars Playhouse. That's what they call it. Excellent. I'll talk about that more, because that's the best thing ever. Let's see. I saw... What else have I seen? I've seen The Taming of the Shrew. I've seen Henry V. I've seen Julius Caesar. I've seen Hamlet. I've seen The Tempest. Let's see. Do you have a favorite edition of the complete works? So no, I don't. But I do have something that is. I gotta move. I got all these books. I want to use this opportunity to talk about my little collection of Shakespeare books. So my husband bought this. I don't know where he got the idea for it. He decided one day we needed a complete set of Shakespeare works. So it's Bevington, The Complete Works of Shakespeare, Addison Wesley Longman. So I don't know if it's my favorite, but it's the only one I've got. And I can't believe he got it, because it's tiny print, and he only reads on the Kindle now because his eyes have gone bad. But we have this very tiny print and rather thin paper collection of Shakespeare plays, which I've never read from it. It's just sitting on the shelves. But I wanted to talk about the different versions of the plays. This was my favorite because I need the English on the one side and then the original language on the other. And I think it's a very friendly format. And what I try to do is I try to read the actual Shakespeare language. And then if I get puzzled, I can go to the next, to the opposing page and read how they're interpreting it. So No Fear Shakespeare is actually my favorite edition. I also have this Ignatius Critical Editions, which is edited by Joseph Pierce, who I've talked about before. I really like him. He's a Catholic literary historian. And this is one of the plays I haven't read. It's on my list for classic spins, but I'm in the classic club, so I do spins 4 times a year. And this is something I still need to read. I've not read King Lear. And so there's that. Let's see what else. I have like a Dover Thrift, Comedy of Errors, and I've not read that. Julius Caesar, this is great. I don't know why, this is the only one I have of this particular. This is pretty good too. Like they'll just pull out the words that you might not get over here and then kind of gloss it and then the play. And so that's kind of helpful. That's Julius Caesar. What else do I have? Do I have any other editions? No. I think that's it. That's my representation of the different editions of Shakespeare plays that I've used. Let's see. What's my favorite comedy? I have 2. And both of them are because I saw such great performances. I'd seen Midsummer's Night's Dream several times at a high school, at various places. That's like the most popular play, it seems to me, to put on, at least around here. But then we decided we were going to go see Shakespeare at this Blackfriars Playhouse in Stanton, Virginia. It's excellent. It's a reproduction of, it's not the Globe, it's the other one. And they put it on exactly the way Shakespeare did. So the lights are on, the audience is sitting in benches right around this little stage. There are hardly any props or pieces of furniture, 1 or 2. And they have people actually sitting on the stage on the sides. And they sing in intermissions. They come out with instruments and they sing and they interact with the audience, and it's really, really fun. And I saw Midsummer's Night's Dream there with my family. I have never laughed so hard in my life. The actors were brilliant. They had complete control of the audience. Because you're so close, it's so intimate. It was incredible. Just the best performance. Now, why did I start talking about? Anyway, so Midsummer Night's Dream, even though it technically I don't think is my favorite comedy, it was the best play I ever saw performed. But I really liked The Tempest. I went and saw the American Shakespeare Theater in D.C. And The Tempest, I didn't know the story. And so I just read like a summary of it, and I went in and saw it, and it was so brilliantly put on. The scenes, the whole staging of it, the acting, everything was absolutely enchanting, absorbing, just magical. So I think The Tempest might actually be my favorite comedy, even though I don't think, as Roz said, it's not technically a comedy. Apparently he wrote it later. I didn't know that, Roz. Thank you for bringing that detail up. I did not know that. So I have 2 because of the performances. For history, okay, so this was the turning point. I kept trying to like Shakespeare and I kept failing. And then my aunt, who I've talked about before, I've inherited lots of books of her, I was really close to her. She invited me, this was right after I had my oldest child, and I was kind of, isolated as you are when you're first a mother and you've given up your career to stay at home. Nobody else was at home. There was just nannies in the area where it was really, really isolating. Anyway, she said, they're going to have, this was before the Shakespeare Company in D.C., back when it was called the National Shakespeare Theater, I think. When they were just starting out, they didn't have buildings yet. And what they used to do is they would go around to construction sites. And I lived a few blocks away from this major building project that was going on. They were putting up all these high-rise apartments and stuff. And so she saw that it was close to me. So she said, let's go see Julius Caesar. So she bought tickets for us, and she parked at my house, and we walked the 4 blocks or whatever it is to this big construction place, and it had a working elevator, and we went up to whatever floor it was, the 7th floor. It's completely nothing but girders and, nothing, concrete floor. There was equipment, off on one side. We're on this floor. They just set up folding chairs, and they put on Julius Caesar. And again, there's something, I love The Tempest because of it was very lush and creative, the way they presented it on stage. But I also have to say, I really like it when it's just no props, or maybe just a few, and just bare stage, and it's just about the actors. But anyway, this play of Julius Caesar, that's what turned me around, because I was just absolutely enchanted by the performance. I loved it. I came out of there just floating, because it was such a transforming experience. So that Julius Caesar is my favorite history. I think it's a history, or is it a tragedy? Is history only the English plays? I don't know, but I love Julius Caesar. That was really, really just changed my life. For tragedy, I'm going to say Othello, and again, it's because I saw this fantastic performance. I've actually seen Othello twice at the same Shakespeare company in town, not the Folgers, but the other one, whatever it's called. What's it called? I don't know. Anyway, I'll put it in the links below. But anyway, I saw it. This was back in, I don't know, it was like the early 2005 or something like that. I saw Avery Brooks and Patrick Page in Othello. So Avery Brooks was Othello, and Patrick Page, who I'd seen previously as Macbeth, playing Macbeth, he played Iago. And they were so good. Oh my gosh, it just knocked my socks off. And again, I didn't know the story. I read the little summary, and then I just go in and I watch it, and oh my gosh, and then I went home and read it. That absolutely incredible performance. And then I went to see it, because I liked it so much, I went to see it again, and it was terrible. That was their more recent showing of it, and I forget, it had this guy from Pakistan playing, and he was just weak. He wasn't a strong actor. And the person they cast for Iago, he might have been good, but he was completely miscast. And they were trying to put it in sort of this pseudo-Nazi Germany, kind of. It didn't make sense, and it was really weak. And compared to Avery Brooks and Patrick Page, it was just sort of a travesty. The main actor, kept flubbing his lines. He kept screwing up like the most well-known lines. It was really sad. So, and that was the first time that I was really disappointed by that theater. But that fellow disappointed me. My least favorite play, this is prompt number 8. I'm sorry, I'm getting away from the prompts, and I'm just babbling. I'm going to try and wrap this up. My least favorite play is The Taming of the Shrew. And it's partly the annoying sexism of it, but also it just is weird. I think the pacing is weird, and I hate that Catherine is on the stage so much, and even though she's the focal point, or sort of the focal point, she's just spent so much time on the stage not talking. It really bugs me. And so, because I don't really like the sexism in it, and because of I just think it's not a very good play. I just don't like it. So Taming of the Shrew would be my least. Which play would you want to direct? So let me talk about certain things. There's a couple things I want to talk about. As a symbol, is that what I want to say? Or sort of a marker of how far I've come when it comes to Shakespeare, because I went for so many years thinking I don't do Shakespeare. So we did go and see the reduced Shakespeare company, and I got the jokes. Oh, I loved it. And they're very coarse, they're very bawdy. I'm not usually into bawdy sense of humor, but I make an exception with Shakespeare. But anyway, we even got this, which got a little wet. But anyway, we did go and see the reduced Shakespeare company, and it was quite entertaining, quite wonderful. And let's see, what else was I gonna say? It was, what would you like to direct? So as a homeschooler, we had to teach Shakespeare, and I was really nervous about it. And my older kids actually we're so blessed in this area. There was a woman she's since moved away, but she was a publicist for the Kennedy Center, and she had been a theater major, and so she taught a whole year of Shakespeare. So my kids got the best introduction to Shakespeare, much better than I ever got, and a very thorough introduction. They read all the sonnets, they went and saw performances, they read and had deep discussions about the different plays, and a much better introduction than I did. But I did wind up teaching, I'm sorry, I'm getting a frog in my throat, Henry V at co-op, where I was teaching 7th and 8th graders. And we had fun. We took our time. We used the no fear. I was like, I'm okay if you read the other part and you can't quite get, we'll talk about the original language. And then we had a special meeting at this co-op where we watched Henry V with Kenneth Branagh. Yeah, I never know if I say his name right. Branagh. That movie. So that was really fun. So I haven't directed a play, but I've taught a play, which is just amazing that I managed to do that. It was great fun. I really loved this play a lot. But anyway, so it would be kind of cool to direct this one, I think. And I'm still thinking in terms of middle schoolers. And I have this, which I never have actually used, I've lent it out, but it's a great classroom resource, or, a group resource. Shakespeare in the Classroom, Plays for the Intermediate Grades by Dr. Albert Cullum. And the plays that are in here, with all the stage directions and that sort of thing, and the sort of redacted for the middle schoolers, it's got Hamlet, Macbeth, Romeo and Juliet, A Midsummer Night's Dream, Julius Caesar, Comedy of Errors, The Taming of the Shrew, and The Tempest. So it doesn't have Henry V. I mean, out of that, I don't know, I think Julius Caesar would be a good thing to do with middle schoolers if they're learning like Roman history. A Midsummer Night's Dream is kind of a typical one that a lot of theaters around, a lot of high schoolers and theater groups do around here. Anyway. So I think that this would be, if I was going to direct a play, I would either have to figure out how to do this one, or I would do something out of this one, because it's already set up for me, and I'm not a director. I don't know anything. And then, let's see, what are the other things? I can't answer the question, which lesser-known play do you think deserves more attention? And to direct, I don't know enough. I'm just simply not an expert. But I just thought I'd go really quick. Oh my gosh, it's already almost 23 minutes. But I'm just going to go through my collection of books here. So I actually went to a seminar given by this teacher. Her name is Lois Burdett. I don't know if she's up in Canada, and in Stratford, Ontario, Canada. And she had her children write these books. She would teach Shakespeare. That would be her big theme. And she had a mixed classroom of like kids from all economic levels. And she taught English to these kids, and they would rewrite the plays. You have to see how wonderful these are. They would illustrate and rewrite the plays, and then they would get to put them on with the local Shakespeare theater. It's absolutely amazing. And I went to her workshop, and I never did this with my own kids, but it was such a wonderful event. And to meet this woman, such a talented teacher, really, really amazing. So I have this set that I've never actually really used or read or anything, but I bought it when I went to the workshop, and I kind of treasure it. Shakespeare can be fun. And I mean, if you had the wherewithal to teach your kids using this, it would be a really, really neat thing to do. It would be a really good experience. And then just real quickly, because I homeschooled, in homeschooling in the Charlotte Mason method, you read synopsises of the play to the kids to give them, just a basic understanding. And so I did get this, Charles and Mary Lamb's Tales from Shakespeare. And my kids, like me, objected to knowing too much about the play. They wanted to just have a vague idea of what was going on and then go see it. And read about it later. But still, I got this to read aloud, and then this just happens to be something I inherited from that Irish children's writer, Mary Welch, who married into my father's side of the family. So this is an old collection of her, and I don't know the woman who wrote this, Marchette Chute. This is copyright 1956. So I have two collections of retellings kind of for children. Then really quick here, this is Joseph Pierce again, The Quest for Shakespeare. He wrote another book. I read Will in the World, and I was so confused by it when I finished that. I was like, I have no idea who William Shakespeare was. It was just a compilation of every kind of theory on Shakespeare, no matter how cockamamie. So this made a lot more sense to me, and he wrote another book too, and I would like to read that. And then he based a lot of his research on this, Shakespeare's religious background, because there's a lot of evidence, and I know I'm Catholic, and I'm always talking about being Catholic, but that Shakespeare was Catholic, that he didn't go over to the Church of England. And there's a lot, and this priest, this pretty academic book, back in the 70s, I think he's a Jesuit, yeah, he did research on it, and this is basically all his evidence for why Shakespeare was probably Catholic. And then the last book I want to show is Shakespeare's Use of Language Arts. This should be on my classic spin. This is by a very well respected classicist, Sister Miriam Joseph. And she actually uses Shakespeare to teach grammar, logic, and rhetoric, topics of invention. This is all like sort of the classic way to teach rhetoric. So it's pretty cool. And I would like to read through this. I mean, it's basically a textbook, but she just goes through and cites example after example of Shakespeare. So anyway, boy, am I talking too much. Wow, I'm so sorry. The last thing, though, I wanted to mention, I'm going to put the link below, and this kind of ties into Shakespeare, because in Stanton, Virginia, where they have this wonderful Blackfriars Playhouse, it's also the home of Woodrow Wilson. That's where he was born. And you can go, we've gone and toured his house. And here's the thing about Woodrow Wilson. He might have done some good things, but he was also a racist. And you learn about his racist origins in Stanton and how his family kept slaves and that sort of thing. And he is the one who instituted Jim Crow in the federal government. Did you know we didn't have Jim Crow before? And so he kind of got lionized because of the whole, the precursor to the UN. And so a lot of people kind of ignored really bad stuff about Woodrow Wilson. Now, I can see naming the library at Princeton, where he's the president, after him, because he was president of the United States, he was president of Princeton. I think that's valid. But here in our area, we have a bridge named after him. The bridge goes from Virginia to Maryland. And I don't get naming things like that after somebody who really, there's something truly reprehensible that they did, so, and I don't think it's denying history or anything. We can learn it, we can go to his home and visit his home, we can name certain things after him, but why this bridge? So I actually started this teeny tiny little change.org petition, and I think I have 9 people who signed so far, because I'm not a big influencer in any way, shape, or form. But I just thought I'd put a plug for it here, that we change the name of that bridge, Woodrow Wilson Bridge, in the Washington, D.C. area, to a bridge named after Frederick Douglass, who came from Maryland. He was a slave in Maryland. He escaped from Baltimore to go up to New England. And he lives not very far from where that bridge is. And I've been to his house a couple times, and he's one of my heroes. He's one of these people that if I could go back in time and talk to somebody, he would be it. And he's a far worthier American to name a bridge after. And it would be completely appropriate to name this bridge after him. So I think we should change the name. So I started this petition, and I have 9 signatures. And I just want to get the idea out there, and then hopefully it'll start rolling, and then at some point we can change the name of this bridge. So it's just my tiny little contribution. I cannot believe I've been talking for half an hour. I wish I could edit. Shakespeare's too big of a topic for me, I think. Anyway, so I'm going to put the petition down below, and I will talk to you later. Sorry I chattered so much. Bye.